Sheriff Clay Harlan didn't flinch at much anymore. Not after 23 years on the force. But when his retired K-9 bandit, locked up at the river's edge, refusing to move, eyes pinned on a patch of soft earth, Clay felt the old panic stir. The kind that made your ribs tighten and your throat go dry. The kind he hadn't felt since you went missing. 9 years ago, Evelyn Ridge vanished after church choir. No body, no signs, just her locket in the reeds. Clay thought the river had given up all its secrets. He was wrong. Like stories like this, quietly subscribing helps more people hear them. Clay Harlan kept his hand resting on Bandit's broad neck, feeling the tension under the dog's fur like a coiled spring. The old shepherd was half-deaf now, hips going soft, but something had gripped him so completely he hadn't blinked in nearly a minute. His muzzle was pointed at a crescent of silt just past the willow roots. Nothing visible, nothing obvious. But Bandit didn't lie. Never had. Clay's breath came slow, steady. The October wind stirred the cattails, carrying the river's cold breath down his collar. "Talk to me, boy," Clay murmured. Bandit didn't bark, didn't move, just trembled. Clay dropped to a knee, one gloved hand brushing the mud. The riverbank had shifted some, probably a runoff after last month's flash storm. But the soil here was different, loose, newly disturbed, like something had been unearthed or buried again. He reached for his phone, called it in. "This is Sheriff Harlan," he said. "Get forensics to Barlow Bend, north end of the river trail, past mile marker 12. Bring trench gear." The dispatcher's voice crackled with static. "Copy that. Found something." Clay watched Bandit shift a few inches closer, sniffing at the edge of the brush, then letting out a low, almost mournful whine. "Maybe," he said. "Or someone." 20 minutes later, Deputy Reese pulled up in the cruiser, a dusty windbreaker over his uniform, thermos in hand. His boots crunched through the gravel as he approached. "What are we looking at?" he asked, sipping coffee. Clay didn't answer right away. He was staring at the patch Bandit had zeroed in on. The dog hadn't moved. Reese followed his gaze, squinting. "Jesus, Bandit hasn't done that in years." Clay nodded. "Last time he froze like that, we pulled a body from the lake. You think we're going to do the same now?" "I don't think anything," Clay said. "I just know he's not wrong." Reese crouched and began brushing soil with his fingers, loose as sandpaper. This was turned recently. "You get any fresh missing persons?" "No, but this isn't fresh," Clay muttered. He didn't say it, but the thought had already taken root. The way Bandit stood still, the way the earth smelled, damp and old. This wasn't about something new. This was about Evelyn. 9 years ago, Evelyn Ridge was 13 years old. Her family lived in a small farmhouse out on Willow Ridge Road. Her father, Tom Ridge, taught Sunday school. Her mother, Ellie, baked for every church fundraiser. Evelyn played piano. She was quiet, always smiling, always humming something. On a Sunday afternoon in late spring, she walked out the church doors and was never seen again. No one saw a car pull up. No one saw her leave with anyone. One minute she was standing near the swings, waiting for her ride. The next, she was gone. Clay was the one who found her silver locket in the reeds a mile downstream. Inside was a photo of her mother, aged and faded, and a sliver of dried lavender. They searched the woods for weeks, dragged the river twice. The town cried, then whispered, then moved on. But Clay never did. He kept Evelyn's file on the corner of his desk all these years, just in case. By early afternoon, the riverbank had become a makeshift excavation site. Floodlights buzzed under the overcast sky, casting halos on the mud. Forensics techs in white suits moved with quiet urgency. Clay stood back, arms folded, boots planted. Bandit lay beside him now, breathing slow, but still watching that same patch. Then came the call. "Sheriff, you're gonna want to see this." Clay moved through the cordon line. The lead tech, Margot, stepped aside, her face tight. They'd uncovered a bundle of decayed fabric. Some kind of old canvas duffel. It had been weighted down with rusted rebar, now tangled with roots. Inside the bag was a small skeleton, partially intact. Female. Clay didn't speak. Didn't need to. The room around him seemed to dim. Then Margot held up the final piece. a tarnished silver locket. He didn't go home that night. Instead, Clay sat in the old church parking lot, staring at the swing set behind the fence. Rusted chains, one broken seat. The sky was bruised with clouds. Bandit sat in the passenger seat, eyes closed. Clay remembered Evelyn's father, Tom Ridge, coming into the station with his hand shaking. He remembered how the man's voice cracked when he said, "She never would have left on her own. Never." Clay also remembered the quiet doubts that followed in town, the whispers that maybe Evelyn wasn't as sweet as she looked, that maybe she snuck off with a boy, maybe she ran, maybe Tom knew more than he let on. Clay had shut those whispers down. But something about Tom had never sat right. Back then, the ridgeline farm backed up straight to the river, close enough for a short walk. Now that land had been sold off, but the memories clung to the water like fog. He knocked on the old man's door just after dusk. Tom Ridge opened it with tired eyes and gray stubble, wearing a wool cardigan and worn jeans. His shoulders sagged, the shape of someone slowly shrinking over time. "Clay," he said. Heard the radio. "We found her." Tom didn't ask where or how. He just nodded once, eyes glassed over. "I always knew she didn't run," he whispered. Clay studied him, the way his hands gripped the edge of the door. Not grief, something else. Control, containment. "You ever go walking along the river?" Clay asked. Tom glanced up. "Not in years. Not since she. I couldn't bring myself." Clay waited. Tom's mouth opened slightly, then closed. "Ellie's inside," he said quietly. "You want to tell her?" Clay hesitated. "Not yet." There was something in Tom's eyes that bothered him. Something old, buried under time. Not guilt exactly, but fear. The town reacted like it always did, with candles, casseroles, and quiet prayers. They held a service in the old chapel. Evelyn's bones were laid to rest beside her grandmother's. Ellie Ridge sobbed through the whole ceremony. Tom didn't shed a tear. Clay stood near the back, hands in his coat pockets. Beside him, Bandit leaned quietly into his side, ears low. The closure should have felt clean, but it didn't, because there were two questions still clawing at Clay's ribs. Who put Evelyn in that river? And why had Bandit waited 9 years to find her? 2 nights later, Clay drove the old trail near the bend again, windows down. Something was gnawing at him. The pattern, the location, the fact that the site was covered over for so long, then disturbed, fresh enough that Bandit picked up a scent. It meant someone had come back. Recently, that someone wasn't done. Bandit perked up in the back seat, a low growl in his throat. Clay hit the brakes. They were near the old campsite. One kids used to sneak into before it was shut down after a forest fire. It wasn't far from the burial site. Clay grabbed his flashlight, stepped into the brush. Bandit followed, nose to the dirt. They pushed through brambles, and Clay's boot caught on something hard. He crouched, cleared the dirt. A small cross, handmade, old but not that old. And beneath it, a second bundle. Canvas, rebar, another body. His stomach flipped. It wasn't just Evelyn. And someone out there was still burying their past. The second bundle was smaller, but not by much. Clay crouched low as Margot's team moved in, their gloves brushing back the moss and damp leaves. A strange stillness had settled over the woods, broken only by the soft click of cameras and the muted scuff of boots on wet earth. Another canvas bag, weathered, torn, rust stains along the seams. And just like the first, weighted with bent rebar. Clay stood a few feet back, arms crossed, watching as a forensics team unzipped the duffel. What they found wasn't bones. Not yet, but cloth. A child's jacket, pink and purple, the print faded. A sparkly unicorn decal across the back, smeared with mud. Bandit shifted beside Clay, ears forward, his breath low and steady. Not a growl, not fear, recognition. "Sheriff," Margot said, standing carefully. "This one's newer. Soil around the bag is no more than 2, maybe 3 years settled. Could still be remains inside. We'll need to scan the site further." Clay's throat tightened. What else was in there? She hesitated, then handed over a sealed evidence bag. Inside it sat a small digital camera, mud-caked, battery corroded, but the casing looked mostly intact. Clay took it gently. Get this to the lab. Fast. He looked around the woods again, more carefully this time. This wasn't just someone hiding a body. This was a pattern. Back at the station, Clay pulled the missing persons reports from the last 10 years. He laid them out across the conference table, sorting them by age, location, and last seen. For names popped. All girls. All under 14. All from counties nearby. All vanished without a trace between 2013 and 2021. No overlap in family. No known predators flagged. No clear suspect ever linked them. But now there were 2 graves. 2 identical methods of disposal. 2 children hidden under layers of earth and time. And that pink unicorn jacket. Clay remembered that one. Her name had been Cassidy Morrow. She disappeared during a camping trip with her aunt and uncle near the Ridgeline Trail. Vanished from her tent sometime before dawn. That was 2020. Now her jacket was buried 30 yards from Evelyn Ridge. Someone's using this place, he murmured, staring out the window. Over and over. He drove out to speak with Cassidy's aunt the next morning. Marie Simmons lived alone in a modest ranch house west of Barlow. The woman opened the door slowly, robe pulled tight, eyes hollowed by years of waiting. You found something, didn't you? She said before he could speak. Clay nodded once. We believe Cassidy may have been found near where Evelyn Ridge was uncovered. Marie didn't cry, just pressed a hand over her mouth, closed her eyes, and leaned against the doorframe. I always said the campground was cursed, she whispered. Everyone kept telling me she wandered off, drowned. But I knew. Clay hesitated. Did Cassidy ever mention anyone strange at the site? Or any person she seemed scared of? Marie shook her head slowly. Not scared. But there was a man. Showed up late on the second night. Said he was part of maintenance. Never introduced himself. Said there was a busted pipe he needed to check behind the shower stalls. Clay's stomach dropped. Did you see his face? Only in the dark. White guy. Middle-aged. Beard. He wore a Park Service jacket. Did you report him? They said no one was scheduled that week. Back at the station, Clay searched personnel records, maintenance, forestry, and seasonal hires. Anyone with access to the Ridgeline campgrounds over the last 10 years. 17 names. 3 matched Marie's description. 1 stood out. Travis Bell, hired as a seasonal maintenance worker for 3 separate summers. Quiet record. No arrests. Moved out of state in 2022. But in 2013, he lived on Willow Ridge Road, 6 houses down from the Ridge family. Clay pulled up his old DMV photo. Gray eyes. Beard. Wore a baseball cap in the photo. He printed it. Tacked it beside the 2 evidence bags on the wall. Something about the eyes. Cold. Distant. Bandit. Asleep in the corner. Gave a sudden whimper in his sleep. Then a low growl. Clay stood very still. You remember him, don't you, boy? It took a call to Missouri State Police to track Travis Bell down. He was living in a trailer outside a small town near the Ozarks. Working night shifts at a grain silo. No known priors. Paid taxes. Kept quiet. Clay leaned over his desk. Fingers steepled, heart ticking like a metronome. We need to bring him in, Reese said, coming through the door. Clay nodded slowly. Quietly. No sirens. No headlines. I want him looking me in the eye. 3 days later, Travis sat across from Clay in the small interview room. He wore a faded flannel shirt, jeans, and that same blank, unreadable face. His hands were clean. No ring. No tremor. You know why we brought you in? Clay asked. Travis shrugged. Said something about being near a campground 10 years ago. Clay dropped the photo of Evelyn's locket in front of him. Then Cassidy's jacket. Then the camera. Travis didn't blink. That yours? Clay asked. Travis looked at the camera. Never seen it. Clay leaned forward. We're going to get the files off it. If there's a picture of you on there, even one, this conversation changes real fast. Travis didn't move. Then you better find one. There was something about his calmness. Not indifference. Confidence. As if he knew the odds were in his favor. as if he knew there was nothing to find. The techs recovered 3 blurry photos. 2 were unusable, motion-blurred shots of trees. The third was clearer. A man, back turned to the lens, carrying something heavy over his shoulder. Canvas bag. No face. Just a figure in a dark coat and jeans. But on his right wrist, a faded tattoo. A barbed wire band circling bone. Clay printed the image. Took it back into the room. "You got ink, Travis?" The man smirked. "Not since I was 20. "Where?" He held up both arms. "Clean." Clay stared hard at the photo again. A strange itch behind his eyes. Something's wrong. Something's off. Then it hit him. The coat. He'd seen it before. Tom Ridge, Evelyn's father. A man who never cried at the funeral. A man who claimed he never went back to the river. A man who wore the same dark canvas coat with the elbow patch every winter, year after year. A man who Clay had once seen, years ago, rolling up his sleeves, and who had a small, faded barbed wire tattoo on his wrist. Left side. Clay stood up. "You're free to go, Travis." Reese blinked in the hall. "You're releasing him?" Clay said nothing. He walked straight to his cruiser, heart pounding. Bandit leapt into the passenger seat, without a word, and they drove straight back to Willow Ridge Road. The Ridge home looked smaller than Clay remembered. Lights were off, curtains drawn. He parked down the street and walked up on foot. Bandit followed, ears alert, silent as a shadow. The side gate creaked open. No sound from inside. Clay approached the barn out back, one Tom used to use for woodworking. Inside, the air was thick with dust and varnish. And in the far corner, a shallow pit, freshly filled. Clay stepped closer. Bandit froze. Same pose. Same breath. Just like at the river. Clay dropped to one knee. His flashlight caught something in the dirt. A child's shoe. Too clean. Too new. This wasn't a memory. It was still happening. Tom hadn't lost his daughter. He'd buried her. And now he was doing it again. Clay stood completely still, the flashlight trembling in his grip. The small pink sneaker in the dirt couldn't be more than a few months old. Velcro strap. White sole. No dust. No rot. Whoever it belonged to hadn't been buried long. Bandit growled, low and steady. The sound rumbled through the barn like a warning. Clay didn't speak. Didn't move. Just stared at the dirt, trying to quiet the storm in his chest. If Evelyn had been the first, and Cassidy the second, how many more? He reached for his radio. "This is Sheriff Harlan. I need a forensic team dispatched to 22 Willow Ridge Road. Back barn. Suspected burial site. Possible active scene. Proceed quiet." The reply crackled, but he was already backing out of the barn, eyes still locked on the shoe. Then, a voice behind him. "Didn't want you to find that." Clay turned. Tom Ridge stood at the barn door, shotgun lower but steady in his arms. His eyes weren't wild. They were tired, hollow, like he'd been waiting for this. Clay's hand hovered near his holster. Tom put it down. Tom didn't move. "I buried her too deep. Should have waited for the next rain." Clay's mouth was dry. "Whose child, Tom?" Tom glanced at the shoe. "Doesn't matter now." "It matters to me." Tom exhaled. "Her name was Lila. She came by selling cookies. Her van was too far down the street. No one heard. No one saw." Clay's jaw clenched. "Why?" Tom's voice cracked then, the first sign of anything close to grief. "Because Evelyn never got justice. Because that bastard got away." Clay blinked. "You mean Travis?" Tom nodded. "I saw him. The night Evelyn disappeared. I saw his truck near the trail. Saw him pull her inside." Clay's hand shook now. "You had evidence?" "Not enough. Just my eyes. And they all said I was grieving too hard. That I imagined it. So you waited and you killed him?" Tom's face went blank. "No. I followed him. But he vanished before I could act. By the time I caught up, years had passed. I was different. Older. But I still remembered his face." Clay stepped forward slowly. "Tom, that body in the barn, Lila. She wasn't him." Tom's voice dropped to a whisper. "I thought her father was. I'd seen him before at the church years back. He looked like him. Same eyes, same walk, but it wasn't him. I found out later. Clay's chest hollowed. You killed an innocent man's child. Tom didn't argue. It's not justice. I know that now. Then why keep doing it? Tom raised the shotgun slightly. Because every time I stopped, I could still hear her singing. I could still see her locket in your hand. Clay stepped forward. Don't do this. I already did. The shotgun rose, trembling. Clay moved fast. Bandit moved faster. The old shepherd lunged with surprising force, knocking into Tom's side just enough to throw him off balance. The gun fired, but the shot went wide, punching a hole through the barn roof. Clay tackled Tom to the ground and wrestled the weapon free. Tom didn't resist, just laid there, staring at the ceiling. She was my little girl, he whispered. Clay cuffed him, breathing hard. And now you've taken someone else's. Tom nodded once. I deserve whatever comes. 2 weeks later, the whole town sat still again. Lila's body was confirmed. The family, from a neighboring county, had been searching since spring. The girl's father, a mechanic named Jordan Bell, not related to Travis, had broken down sobbing when Clay brought him the news. Tom Ridge was charged with 3 counts of murder. 1 confessed, 2 suspected. 1 child's remains were still being tested. Another canvas bag had been found deeper under the Ridge property. Clay didn't have the strength to open it himself. The locket, the camera, the jacket, they were all cataloged and preserved, placed into evidence that told a story no one had wanted to believe. But the river had remembered, and Bandit had brought it all back. On a cold November morning, Clay stood at the riverbank where Bandit had first locked up. The sun filtered through the trees, soft and thin, and the water moved slow as molasses. Bandit sat beside him, head resting on Clay's boot. You're a damn good dog, Clay said quietly. Bandit wagged his tail once, tired. The town was quieter now. Not healed, but quieter. Some wounds don't close, but sometimes they stop bleeding. As Clay looked across the river, he could almost see her, a little girl with long hair, a silver locket, smiling, waiting.